E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Thursday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, John McMullen. Week number 4 of the Eagles offseason is getting close to the end here. We do have some news in Eagle land, but plenty of great topics to talk about this morning. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, my friend?
Doing well. My usual technical issues, but other than that, all is well. And Kevin Patullo is out, so that's
yeah, we got to talk. Let's start right there, John. The great Kevin Patullo that was so beloved here in Philadelphia is now scraping the egg off the side of his house as he packages up to leave for Miami. Your thoughts on Kevin Patullo getting hired to Miami to be their pass game coordinator?
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. Passing game coordinator, senior offensive assistant role somewhere. Gets it down in Miami, which is good for Kevin because he's a big golfer. His daughter's a tremendous golfer, could be a future professional. So obviously Florida helps you in that way. Plus he went to high school down there. He went to high school right near Miami, where in fact he went to high school in the same town that the Dolphins' old training facility, which was in Davie, Florida, was. They have a brand new one, which is gorgeous, by the way, right next to the stadium in Miami Heights. But yeah, nice fit for him. Nice landing spot. Goes into a situation where Jeff Hatley is a first-time head coach, defensive-minded, so he will have a key role with Bobby Slowick, ironically, who interviewed for the Eagles offensive coordinator position as they try to rebuild that offense, likely with a new quarterback, whoever that might be. So they're in that situation where they have to find a quarterback, so that's never easy. But, yeah, not the dumbest guy in the world, despite what you've been told by way too many. Was always going to happen. It was just a matter of where, and now we know where.
There you go. Kevin Patullo to Miami. We'll see if it works out. I think obviously you just mentioned it. The toughest thing there, John, is who the heck is their quarterback? I don't think it's going to be Tua anymore, and not a whole lot of options out there. Hey, I got Tanner McKee for a second for you, Miami.
Yeah,
take it or leave it, all right?
I think they're going to leave that. But,
yeah, I think so too.
There's quite a few. I mean, Derek Carr's talking about coming out of retirement. Kirk Cousins is going to be back on the market if he doesn't retire. Malik Willis is going to be a hot name. That's going to be the name that I think people connect immediately to Miami because Jeff Hatley was in Green Bay and he did a good job when he had to come in there. So I think that's the name you'll hear most. But there's more. I would say there's more competent options projected this offseason than most off seasons, at least early on. If you're looking for, obviously wouldn't be the long-term answer, but the only one of that could be a long-term answer is potentially Willis if he can get him up to speed and he can be a starting quarterback. But that's a big if. But there's more competent options than there normally is. So that's gonna get a first round pick for Tanner people a little bit, I think.
There you go. We'll see what ends up happening with that. Kevin Patullo, congrats to him. He's hired. I told him, man. I said it at the start here. He's gonna have to scrape some of that, egg off his house when he sells that thing. Unfortunately, Philly fans have plastered the home, but good for Kevin Patullo. We'll see what he's able to do. John, what's left for the Eagles in terms of imperative stuff? Like stuff, I'm not talking free agency. I'm not talking the draft. That's obviously all stuff in the, in the future. But what's the imperative stuff? What coaches are left to fill out? It feels like we're almost there completely. What's the imperative stuff that the Eagles still have to do that could come at any day, if there's anything? I'm starting to feel like maybe they racked it all up. Maybe they finished it all up.
Not necessarily. Quarterbacks, number one. That obviously with Jalen Hurts, you want, and Sean Mannion's going to be working hand in hand. He's going to be the most important guy, but still, you can't, when you're running the whole offense, you can't work with the quarterbacks in every meeting day to day. So, could be Scott Leffler still here, still under contract, but they have talked to some other people. So that indicates to me they want to go in a different direction, but sometimes you can't. And sometimes you can't get the guys you want. The name that popped up was Greg Olson, longtime quarterbacks coach, plenty of experience as an offensive coordinator, who used to coach Mannion in Seattle, which would make some sense. But he's in Las Vegas, and they just hired a new coach, and you got to wait to see what the new coach wants to do at that position. If he wants to keep him, you're SOL, and that's why you keep somebody like Leffler who's under contract. Is look, it stinks for those guys because they're in they're stuck in the middle and they can't do anything. And by the time, if they are removed, it's so late in the process, there aren't options. But I mean, that's just part of the coaching industry. So that's what I think is going on there. And the rest of the coaching is pretty much done. You'll have some lower level guys that fans don't pay attention to much anyway. The safeties coach is still vacant after Christian Parker left and Joe Casper got promoted. So if they want to bring in a safeties coach, and not everybody has a safeties coach, not everybody breaks it down like that. So it's not like you have to do it. Tyler Yelk is a defensive assistant that, again, lower level, that's leaving for Nebraska. One of his ex-teammates is the defensive coordinator out there, so he's getting a better gig out there. So there's some lower level stuff, but for the most part, the main coaching pieces are in place except for quarterback. So it'll shift pretty quickly, and it has to shift anyway because the combine coming up at the end of the month. It'll shift pretty quickly to the personnel and answering those questions that we all have about where Howie Roseman is going to go with this roster.
Going to be interesting, John. I like the Olsen name because I think it's a nice difference from what they've done so far in terms of inexperience. I like the experience of Olsen. I mean, I look across the NFC East, I see that Giants staff. I'm like, boy, that's an experienced staff right there. I don't know if you can say the same about the Eagles staff. Well, in fact, I know you definitely can't say the same. Now, Nick obviously has pedigree. Vic Fangio has pedigree. I'm not saying it's all lack of experience, but the new offensive coaches are, 33, 35, 38, 43. They're not particularly long-time guys. So I would welcome Olsen. I think that would be a good move. But I don't know how much that plays into your thought process.
Yeah, I mean, I look, Mannion is going to be the most important, and then probably Grizzard. So you're talking about number 3, but you are talking about a guy who's running the quarterback meetings, the guy who's, working with the technique and fundamentals. So it is probably a little bit bigger this season because you're projected to do so many different things. And that'll require some different techniques and some different footwork. So it'll be good to have somebody, Sean Mannion is comfortable with. And, but again, it's not, when guys are under contract, it's not as simple as just saying we want them. That's what's taken so long. And once Las Vegas makes a decision, I think it'll either be Olsen coming here or Scott Leffler staying here.
We'll find out what ends up happening with the quarterback coach in Philly. Still a couple things there to clean up, and then you have the full off-season slate. What will the Eagles do? And then you start to get into personnel, which I think is a massive part of this equation. And maybe there's an expectation, John, that the personnel won't change that much. Everybody on offense is under contract. Where are you seeing the changes? There's not that. I mean, there is a couple free agents, but not to the level where you're like, it's not that many. I look at the offensive side, John, and I say, with this many coaching changes, and I brought this up yesterday, what personnel changes are coming for the Eagles. Now we're going to do a nice long segment here when we get into this, but I just want to hear your kind of overall thoughts before we get specifically into each area of the offense, where I do think there's good conversation on every area. But are you expecting as big of personnel changes as you were, or as they've done with the coaching staff?
No, I don't think they're in a position to make those kind of changes. I do think, Lane's going to be back. I do think Landon's going to be back. So you don't have much change on the offensive line. AJ, we talk about a lot. There's still the potential he's traded. If he's not, obviously you're not going to have a lot of movement at wide receiver. So the one position where you should, obviously the quarterback's not changing, the running back's not changing. The one position you should have multiple new bodies is tight end. I don't think Dallas Goedert will be back. I don't see that path. I'm not sure they would want Grant Calcaterra or Kylan Granson back. So you're going to have to add multiple tight ends via the draft. It's a deep draft from what everyone says from a tight end perspective, so that should help. I don't think they'll take a tight end in the first round. But I do think, day two, you might see one, and it's been a while since Dallas Goedert, since they've done that. But I think tight end is the one position where, there's going to be some turnover. Other guys are big names under big contracts, and it's tough to move off them at this stage.
We're going to see. John, how does the tight end position, how does it change with this perceived or expected new offense? What kind of tight end are they looking for, do you think, that would work in the Mannion, which we don't really know what that looks like yet, but we're assuming it's going to look like a certain style. What tight end fits? What style of tight end? You don't have to go names or specific.
Well, everybody wants George Kittle, who can do everything. Everybody wants Tucker Kraft, who can do everything. Yeah, the key is getting a good player. That's number one. And then I think Sean McVay did it best this year. He had a bunch of good tight ends, so he used them. I think it depends on, and that's all the thing, you're going to see all these think pieces, whatever, and they're going to say the same shit they tell you every year. The under center, the motion, the play action. Look, Sean McVay showed you. He's the guy, everybody's trying to copy, not just the Eagles and Kyle Shanahan. And they shift. They shift all the time to their best players. They're going to utilize their best players. That's my hope. That should be everybody's hope to Sean Mannion. So to put him in these, I was thinking about it too. 90% of the time, you're right, Zander. You look at Green Bay and he's going to run a similar offense to what Green Bay ran. So go get Tucker Kraft and Musgrave and you'll be fine. But at the tight end position, but not always. And I think back to Jonathan Gannon. Like Gannon, when he came in here, and I said, "Oh, that's interesting," because he's going to run a lot of Mike Zimmer A-gap stuff. He was in Minnesota, and then he went to Indianapolis, and he was met with Matt Eberflus, and he'll probably mix it in with a bunch of cover two, old school cover two, and he did nothing of the sort. He got his opportunity, and he liked what Vic did, like everybody else, and built more of that style of defense. So all those people trying to pigeonhole Sean Mannion into something, you better hope they're wrong. Because if he's a good coach and everybody says he's a smart guy, and
look, the changes they've made been too big to just like, you know what I mean? Like that's where I was like, all right, maybe he does not go as far, but Stoutland's like everybody's gone. You know what I mean?
There are certain things like they're going to try to run more wide. Yes, they're going to try to run more. But what I keep saying is, and please, because I got a couple of comments yesterday, please listen to the entire comments. Don't take out one point. They're going to try to do all those things. But if Sean Mannion's as smart as people says, and they're not doing it well, he's going to shift like Sean McVay did last year with all his tight ends, and he's going to utilize what he has. That's what I think everybody should be hoping for. And then maybe you find maybe you're not full bore Kyle Shanahan, but you're in the, you're in the middle of the extremes of what they've been doing and what people want them to do. And maybe you're halfway there or 3/4 there, but you're still taking advantage of the strengths of what you have. That's the upside of Sean Mannion. Not, he's going to use the scheme by hell or high water. Like, why anybody would say that or want that is astonishing to me.
But you do agree that the perception right now is that, like, he's going to cut. You said it yesterday. Are they hiring a scheme? I don't like that,
Yeah, and everybody should say that. And if they're hiring scheme, it's going to fail. Period. I don't think they are. I think they're hiring a guy whose preference is that particular scheme, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's got to have a foundation.
Right. Kellen Moore's preference wasn't the Sirianni offense.
Exactly. Everybody's got a foundation. They should have a foundation. And if you're a head coach like Kellen Moore's in New Orleans, you can work to that foundation. You can work and try to get personnel to fit that. But on the way, you better take advantage of what you have, or you're not going to last to take advantage of it when you build up the personnel that you want to build up. So throw all those pieces in the trash. You heard them all. You read them all. Or just go back to Kellen Moore and read the same thing. Yeah, to me, the most interesting part is, and we got into this on the show during the season, mainly because of the Kirk Cousins clip that went viral, talking about the difference between reading coverage as a quarterback versus pure progression.
Right.
Now, did the Eagles go farther towards pure progression, which in theory would be the case in a Shanahan McVay offense, would be more pure progression? Are they going to go completely in that direction? That to me is far, far more interesting than you got to go under center. You gotta play action. That is far more interesting and far more important than that other stuff.
And do you think they're going to try and do that?
Yeah.
And you think that will work out or no? Any thought one way or the other, or more of a wait and see?
It's more of a wait and see, Well, to use that clip as an example, I don't know. Kirk was like 36 at the time, and he struggled with it. And maybe 35.
That's his skill set too, in a way.
Yeah. Well, you learn one way for 12 years, and now in his case, he's maybe experience kind of hurt him a little bit because he did it one way for so long. And then he's got to wake up and do it another way. But very cerebral quarterback, very smart quarterback. And he struggled with it. So,
will the Eagles hire a scheme? Did they hire a scheme, or will Sean Mannion be smart enough to not fall into that trap? We will see. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. We got some great topics. We have Chris Franklin joining us in hour number 2. So we'll talk to Chris Franklin a little bit later on in the show. Don't forget to hit that like button this morning. If you're listening to the podcast, we appreciate that. John, we're up to 1.5 million downloads on our podcast. How about that? Pretty damn good. And 2025 was the best year on record for Birds 365, from podcast to YouTube to Facebook to clips to live shows. So thanks to all the great people and all the great listeners of Birds 365. You guys keep the show going, and we appreciate all you guys for being here. Good stuff there. Let's get the 2 super chats, and then we'll get into some personnel talk. All right. Primo sent $5 with no comment. Primo, let me find your comment. All right. Wait, Primo, this actually works out good. So he says, Z, is my Stout U hoodie a collector's item? Primo, how's this? How's this, Primo? Can you see my Stout U, J-Mac? There you go, Primo. I got the Stout U rocking right now, too, bro.
All right, can you make me a Cooper Community College?
Yeah, there you go. That's coming next. Chris Cooper, I don't know. Chris Cooper might not even classify as a community college.
Nah, come on.
All right, you got to give him community college.
He's a fine. He's a good.
I was thinking more of like a 1 to 2 year institution. You know, the things where you get like a pseudo degree.
Oh, that's community college. Yeah, that's what.
All right, I wouldn't know.
He's he was a good player. So he knows,
play a lot of games.
He knows what he's doing. It's just a matter of
I like this. I like a JUCO. How about a JUCO, John?
JUCO, that's fine.
All right, I'll take
that's
that.
high. That's a little higher than I would say.
Oh, okay. All right, it's a little higher then. All right, here's Hollywood Hogan. What's up, Hollywood? Rest in peace, James Vanderbeek. Thank you for your amazing role in Varsity Blues as quarterback. Get checked, people. # fight cancer. # cancer awareness. I did see that. Rest in peace. That's man. 48 years old, I think he was.
Yeah, I didn't even know he was sick, so that kind of floored me. But I wasn't paying attention. Everybody knew he was sick, but me, I think. But yeah, it's sad because that was a entertaining movie. Everybody loves it.
Yeah, that's a classic. I'm not a movie guy, but Varsity Blues is a classic.
Yeah. And that, by all accounts, family man, good dude.
Yeah, 6 kids, John. That's always what kills me, man. 48 years old, 6 kids. That's
yeah. So it's always sad, and boy, yeah, way too young. Cancer's a bitch, man. Oof.
Yeah, it really is. Really is. Give your loved ones a hug. Hollywood, thanks for the super chat, brother. Appreciate it. Rest in peace to James Vanderbeek.
Johnny Moxon, the greatest backup quarterback of all time. Yeah. Maybe you think it's Nick Foles. It's Johnny Moxon in West Canaan, Texas.
There you go. Good stuff good stuff from Hogan there, and rest in peace to James Vanderbeek. John, good reference there. Appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button. Johnny Mac, let's talk a little personnel on the offense here. All right. I know we just got into it from a little bit of a macro. I want to go a little micro here. All right. I want to look position by position. We just talked tight end. We'll get to tight end. All right. I'm going to start with the running back position. We'll get to the quarterback. We'll get to the O-line. We'll get to the receivers. We'll get to all of them. Let's start with the running back, John. You got Saquon Barkley here. You got Tank Bigsby under contract for another year. And you have a presumed scheme shift on the offense. If not a full scheme shift, at least a mild scheme shift, especially with the new offensive line coach, a new run game coordinator, a new offensive coordinator, and entire new backgrounds. How well does Saquon Barkley fit? And how well does Tank Bigsby fit? And what do you think they do with that room before the season starts? Just an early thought of maybe what could happen there. We obviously don't need to get too specific. It's February. I'm not going to ask you to say, all right, who's going to be the running backs in week 1? But I do just want to get an idea of how you think about each room. Obviously, Saquon is a highly paid player, and I don't think he's going anywhere. My question for that is more, does Saquon Barkley fit this new offense? I don't know. Your thoughts right now on the running back spot and how it might look next year.
Well, no, he doesn't. And that's why I don't think, you can just blindly do things that he's not as equipped to do as what he is equipped to do, which is more of the inside zone stuff, more of the, get the technique and fundamentals and health, more importantly than anything else, back up to speed on the offensive line. And I think the Eagles are smart enough to do that, but we're going to see. And the same thing with Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby. Does anybody who watched the Eagles, and I know we got Eagles fans here, and most of them are going to say, well, he can do anything blah, blah, blah can do, even Tank Bigsby. Anybody look at those guys and say, they look like really patient runners. They look like, the one name you'll always hear about patience is Le'Veon Bell, who's probably the most patient runner I've ever seen. But you saw it in the Super Bowl with Walker, and it's like, allowing blocks to develop when you're going stretch and wide zone. You have to allow those guys to kick out on their angles, and sometimes you have to wait a beat, and things will open up. And you got to be very patient. Did you all see that with Saquon Barkley and Tank Bigsby? Those are guys who hit the hole. In fact, when you criticize Saquon, Tank hits the hole. But when you criticize Saquon under the prior scheme, most people say, well, he danced too much. And he didn't hit the hole because that's his strength. So, no. But again, that's to my point where if Sean Mannion's as smart and intelligent as people says, he will build around what he has in Saquon Barkley, and that'll mean more inside zone. And maybe they draft somebody in the 4th round who's more equipped, and 3 years down the road, they're running what they want to run.
3 years down the road, that's a damn eternity on the Eagles.
Yeah,
they turn over their coaching staff every year. 3 years down the road, we could have a completely different squad.
Like that, and that's why you don't build. That's why you don't hire a scheme.
Right.
We're going to be talking about that throughout the offseason, even with Vic Fangio. Obviously, he's already retired twice. He's not here for the long haul, so you can't just go in hell and high water. Well, this is a big guy. Well, Vic might not even be here. So
I mean, you just said they're going to revert back to inside. The more you talk, John, about this, the more I get angry.
Well, I would say more.
Of Jeff Stoutland, though. More. I mean, you're going to revert back to that? I mean, Jeff, the point that they got where Jeff Stoutland felt the need to walk away might supersede the Sean Desai decision in Week 12 as the stupidest decision in the Nick Sirianni era.
Yeah, I disagree because, look, they did what everybody wanted them to do. They had success doing it, at least compared to what they were doing before. And I'm talking about this season when they went under center and started to have a little bit more success running the football. That was Nick Sirianni.
But that was a small sample size. That doesn't speak for the last 4 years of success.
No, it doesn't. But, again, be careful what you wish for and change. Look, the Eagles think for whatever reason, and the head coach thinks that for whatever reason, teams caught up to them and they had to change. Now you can debate that, and I'll debate that with you, and I'll say maybe I think it had more to do with the health of the offensive line than teams catching up to them. I think it had more to do with that. I think if you have those monsters performing at a high level, I don't give a shit if they know what's coming. We talk about it all the time with the running game. Silly will talk it all the time with Jimmy Johnson and their 3 freaking running plays. Everybody knew what was coming. Right. Stop it. To me, the issues with the running game were solely on health and guys not playing up to their previous standard, not about technique or fundamentals or scheme.
Well, so how do you say that? Not criticize them for what they've done with Jeff Stoutland?
Because Jeff, look, I mean, the guy is a legend in this town. And I don't care how grounded you are, that can go to your head. And you got two sides of the equation. He's disrespected on one side. The other side is like, you're not the fucking head coach.
You're right. They got to walk on eggshells.
It's like they wanted him back as the offensive line coach, but they felt they had to go in this direction. Maybe that direction is wrong. I think it's an overreach from, look, if Lane is healthy, if Landis, a lot of ifs, and they're back and all this stuff, they're going to be good.
I know. I mean, but we started on one position, the running back, and you correctly point out that neither of the two running backs right now really fit. So they might end up going back to inside zone. well,
first of all, the Rams and the Vikings and the Packers all run a lot of inside. I think people think, well, you only run outside.
Okay, so
No.
you're saying there's going to be some nuance, basically.
Yeah.
Some
And they're going to shift more towards more inside zone than what they want to be, in my opinion, until they get to the point that where they can run it as effectively. And then they'll shift it to that, again, but to your point, which is true, you probably don't have 3 years to get to that point. So, yeah, I mean, that's my biggest issue with all the change. I have no problem trying it, but to say they're going to do it, and if they do it and don't be malleable, I will criticize the shit out of them because, yeah, they have a bunch of guys that don't fit what they want to do right now.
Couple former backs from the Eagles, Kenny Gainwell, DeAndre Swift, feel like they would have been pretty good fits actually in this style of offense. But do you expect them to do anything with that room? Do you expect them to add a name there? Do you expect maybe Tank Bigsby to be out, or maybe they trade him or something like that to try and get maybe a second back that might fit a little bit more what they want to do better, and then you can maybe take a two-back approach into it a little bit more, or how do you maybe see it changing or not changing?
I don't think. I mean, I don't think so because Tank's under contract, but maybe a backup. Maybe they do say, well, he was a fit for what we were doing last year, but he's not a fit for this year. Maybe, Kenny only signed a 1-year deal. Maybe you can get him back. Swift, it would be a perfect fit, but and even Chicago, who does similar things, and he was sort of the zone stretch. They had Monungai, so they'd a 1-2 punch in their power game.
Right. Which worked really well for them.
Yeah, and Ben Johnson's a classic example, one of the new offensive guys. Well, he probably went into it and said, wow, Wright's pretty good. Let me take advantage of that guy.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Monungai becomes a thing. That's good coaches. I am mystified why everybody. Well, you can talk and there's good and bad with the explosion of film guys, because a lot of them are good, a lot of them know what they're doing, and a lot of them don't. And especially when you don't have the context of asking the coaches of what they want to do and what they're trying to accomplish, there's a lot lost in the sauce, and there's way too many people who think these guys stick to the same script, and the good ones. You can say you want to do what Kyle does, but well, go get Christian freaking McCaffrey. How easy is that to do?
What a beast of a player Christian McCaffrey is.
So you have to, and he didn't, when George Kittle came out of freaking nowhere, and the same thing a little bit going on in Green Bay with Kraft, who's a hell of a player. Maybe they got Tucker Kraft in the 3rd round. Maybe they find that type of player, and then you build more around them. Then you build it up. But
any of those Rams tight ends available? They had all those guys. Are they all under contract?
I'd have to look, but they had a bunch. But even so, that's not what Sean wants to do.
Right. But it's what he did with the year.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. You better hope that's not true. Every Eagles fan in this chat listening, those 1.5 million, thank you, podcast listeners, you better hope that's not the case. I think.
We'll see what ends up happening with that. John, does Will Shipley have any role? Will he have an increased role in this new style?
He'd be the one who fits, but Will hasn't shown the ability, and maybe he's better. Maybe he was ill-fitted for what they were doing before. Maybe he is. Maybe he is the guy to at least be a complimentary role, because he far fits better with this philosophy than, from a trait standpoint. He's a good receiver. He's good in space. He's comfortable in space. They threw they were trying this stuff last year. All it was is all training camp. I remember a bunch of flat passes to Will Shipley. You're going to see the same thing. But when he did get his opportunities, he didn't really perform up to a tremendously high level. So it's hard to say he's going to take a step forward until he proves it. But from a trait standpoint, yeah, he would be a better fit than Tank Bigsby for what everybody wants them to do. But is he as good a runner? No. So be careful what you wish for.
I could see Howie moving on from Tank Bigsby, even if it's a trade for a 6th-round pick or 7th-round pick.
Well, if you say, well, this guy's a complete non-fit, yeah, and you go in a different direction and you draft a running back, and obviously you're not going to draft a running back high, but if you draft somebody who you think is a fit for it, yeah.
I felt like Tank had pretty good vision. I don't. Who do you think fits better, Tank or Saquon?
Saquon. Tank is like a million miles an hour. Tank hits the hole, which I like personally.
Yeah, right. Has some pros to it for sure. But
like he is, if anything, he's less patient than Saquon. So I mean, to me, I'm looking for a running back with patience. But I feel like I have to explain every little contextual point because everybody takes it out of context. If you want to run the scheme that everybody thinks they want to run, you need a running back with patience. I don't want that. I'd rather have a guy who hits the hole.
But that does force you to play a different style.
Yeah. Should.
Right. Well, right. Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with the running back spot. Let's keep moving. All right, let's go to the offensive line. Actually, no, let's go to the receivers. We'll go to the offensive line after. John, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Let's assume A.J.'s back just for the sake of this conversation. Jahan Dotson, I think we can assume, is gone. Johnny Wilson, Darius Cooper. We'll keep those 4 names for now. A.J., Devontae, Johnny, and Darius Cooper. How do they fit in the new offense? Are they the type of receivers that would work in this hypothetical spread West Coast type of offense that we're presuming that they're going to try and run more of? What do you see? Good fit, bad fit, no fit, need changes? What do you think of that receiving group in this new offense?
Well, AJ and Devontae can do whatever. It's not going to affect them much. The other guys,
surprised to hear you say that.
No, they're too good. They will figure it out. Now, everybody's making the hitch route comments. By the way, 32 teams use hitch routes pretty significantly, by the way, as well. So there will be hitch routes. Because in general, at least up till last year, when you have guys who win one-on-one, you tend to run on a lot of hitch routes. That's why the Eagles ran a lot of hitch routes. Problem is they didn't get open as much as although again, it's cat and mouse. It's like, are they open or is the ball not coming out? Yada, yada, yada. But they'll be fine. And then after that, I do think Darius Cooper's got some upside. And the fact that he proved that he could block a little bit, I think that helps in this offense. I think Johnny Wilson's hurt the most.
Me too.
From shifting to where they where it was very, very important to have that style of receiving. You saw how important when they didn't have him this year. I think he's hurt by it. Britton Covey's obviously more of a punt returner, but he is, sort of manufactured. I think he might die if he gets hit. Britton, I love him, but that I do expect him to look for that type of player who can generate things with manufactured touches that they really haven't had. And I focused on KJ Concepcion from KC Concepcion from Texas A&M. He's that type of player. Now, some people have him first round pick. They're not going to take him in the first round. But if he falls, I could see him being the guy that they try to get. Because I think they need that player. They haven't had that player. And I think they need that style of player to make this offense a little bit more dynamic. Somebody you can throw the bubble screen to, and it's not going to be just a shit show,
Yeah, I agree. All right, so with AJ, and I certainly agree with your point that AJ is a good enough player to be able to thrive in basically any offense. That's not I would not contest that point at all. But what I might contest, John, is, this offense, normally receivers move around a lot. I know Puka's maybe a little bit of an extreme example because Sean McVay goes crazy with it and he lines them up and all over the place and runs them through the B gap. I don't think you have to do that, but they do move receivers around a lot in this scheme. When I say they, I mean anybody who's running this, spread offense scheme. Is that a fit for AJ? I feel like AJ is an outside guy, and that's where he wins. He's going to win the one-on-one battles. He's got more physicality than most. He's not the most polished route runner or the fastest guy in the world, but he's going to beat you physically. He's going to get to the spot, and he's going to win the battle when it comes to the hand, catching the football. Does this fit AJ? I don't know. I don't think it fits AJ as well as you think it fits. Walk me through your thought process.
Well, I'm not nearly as concerned with the motion. I do think that Devontae would probably be the one doing more of that. Probably. Who knows? But yeah, I think people are way too hyper-focused on that. The funny thing is, again, to the point of Sean Mannion, I think you're going to have the formational tricks. You're going to do that. You're going to try to out leverage people in theory. And you don't have to do that with eye candy. I think it's, and that's what McVay did this year when he switched to 13 personnel. He did it more formationally. Still did the unique stuff of, releasing Puka through the offensive line at times, which doesn't happen often. I don't know if the Eagles would go that far because
I doubt that.
You need a specific type of player, and that's probably going to, I enjoy Puka. If you like football, enjoy him while you can because they're beating the shit out of him.
No, that's so true. Yeah.
So I don't think it's a long shelf life either. So, it depends what people's fantasies are. But I don't think it'll be as drastic as people think, similar to what happened with Kellen Moore. Kellen's all motion.
Well, even if you just leave motion out, what about like formationally lining up? Like AJ doesn't line up in the slot. He doesn't line up inside.
He can, he has, and he usually dominates when he does.
Yeah, it's true. It's just not a big sample size, but I'm sure he would be good at it. But like I look at a receiver like CeeDee Lamb, and like that's the guy you can move all over the place. CeeDee Lamb will line up anywhere.
Well, I think because the Eagles don't do it, and when you have done it, imagine AJ Brown against the average slot corner, which would go about the way it has gone.
Yeah, so good for them.
Taking candy from a baby, basically, if you want to throw the ball in that direction. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues, but I don't think any of them start with AJ Brown if he's back, other than the off the field stuff. Like sometimes God love him, I love the guy, but from an organizational perspective, same thing with Stoutland. From an organizational perspective, we want to be honest. AJ's a pain in the ass from an organizational perspective.
Oh, yeah.
And Stout was turning it into a pain in the ass from an organizational perspective. I mean, it's the same thing.
I know, but John, the thing that bothers me about that comment, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but put up with the pain in the ass. You got 2 Super Bowls, and you won it on the backs of the offensive line in both of them. I mean, he was the offensive line coach. You talk about it all the time. How good is the running game every year in Philly? Even with
they tried. They tried.
I mean, the only time that we've had bad years is when the offensive line struggles, and in 2020, because it was depleted with injuries. So Stoutland is basically the backbone of the team.
They tried. They tried. I mean, he didn't get fired. No matter what people want, he didn't get fired.
I think that they soft-demoted him.
Right? Well, Tim McManus reported that they didn't self-demote him. He essentially said, "Well, if I'm not going to be the run game coordinator, I don't want the title." So they didn't self-demote him. Again, the Cheers title. The funny part is what I tried to explain is, he was never in charge of the running game, not through it all, not in 2021 and 2022 and 2023 and 2024, not in 2013 when he got here, not in 2016 when Doug Peterson took over. He's never been in charge of the running game. It's, again, one of those narratives, false narratives that people cling on to like grim death.
Forget the run game. I mean, why has the run game been so good?
Because, look, Stoutland's a great coach. He's a phenomenal coach. But, again, they got a guy going to the Hall of Fame. No doubt, 2 guys going to the Hall of Fame. No doubt about it. Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson. They got a left tackle who went from, and Stoutland deserves, again, that's the top bullet point on his resume,
100%.
But developmental, top 5 left tackle in the world. They have a left guard who was just a monster, and it might be over, but for 3 seasons was just an absolute monster. And again, be careful what you wish for.
Remember, he turned Mekhi Becton into a monster as well, who struggled before him.
Yeah. Now, that is my concern. That is my biggest concern without Jeff Stoutland. The developmental aspect of it. And nobody's perfect. I mean, he couldn't turn Andre Dillard into a player. Nobody could.
Yeah, right.
So nobody's 100%, but his developmental history is better than everybody else's. So that's my biggest concern. Are you going to have that same ability to take advantage of what he had? But let's be honest, man. I mean, Lane Johnson might be the best right tackle who ever lived.
I know.
And I don't say that flippantly.
Yeah, that's not.
He might be the best right tackle who ever lived. Jason Kelce's top 10 center of all time. Landon Dickerson, again, smaller sample size. He's like the Terrell Davis of left guards. It might only be for a short time, but my God.
Yeah, it was good.
I mean, talent's a big part of it. And that's your hope that, like, Chris Cooper doesn't have that kind of talent in Minnesota. He's going to have more talent here. We'll see where they are health-wise. Maybe he's better. But I wouldn't make that bet to say he's going to be better than Jeff Stoutland. I'm just saying, to the point of shelf lives, look, the guy is great, but the guy was headstrong, and the Eagles wanted to go in a different direction, which most people wanted him to go. I'm the one who thinks maybe they're taking it too far. Most people disagree with me. They wanted to go in a different direction. He wasn't on board, and he moved on.
I hope he's not too big of a loss. I understand your point, and I understand that he's not running the show and it's not his football team, but I don't want to delegitimize his importance. I think it's massive, and especially
No,
I don't think you did. I don't want the narrative to become that, is what I'm saying. I don't think you delegitimized it at all. I think you're just out of context. All right, John, we kind of naturally went into the offensive line off the receiver conversation. We'll save tight end and quarterback. O-line, how do they fit this new perceived offense or expected offensive change? I mean, you just called it. Maulers, Lane Johnson, one of the best right tackles, maybe of all time, maybe the best of all time. All right, Jordan Mailata, I think Jordan will be all right. And maybe there's a chance this fits Tyler Steen a little better, who's not the biggest mauler in the world. And then you have Cam Jurgens. Any one of those guys that are a clear fit or not fit for you? I think this is kind of one of those things, John, that maybe not our chat, but maybe some people fans out there don't understand how an offensive lines, they don't always fit every scheme, or different offensive lines might work better in other schemes. How do you see the Eagles' offensive line fitting what they're trying to do here?
Well, again, it depends. Are they going to hit the square peg in a round hole? Then they don't fit. A lot of them don't fit. Jordan doesn't fit. Landon doesn't fit. Certainly, those be the most obvious ones. But I don't think that's the way it's going to shake out. I think Sean Mannion's going to get here and see how good they are. In the case of Landon, if he's healthy, if he's back, which we don't know. But look, if I tell you, you got a 6'8", 380-pound guy and say, "Hey, go reach block all afternoon."
Come on, man. Come on.
I mean, does it make sense to you?
No.
That's why I say all the Proctor stuff. It's like, all right, under Stoutland, yeah. I mean, I think Proctor's a perfect fit for what the Eagles were looking for. I'm not so sure it's the case now. But again, that's Howie's question. Like, what do I do? And that's why you don't hire a scheme. And my hope is the Eagles haven't hired a scheme. I might be the only one in town hoping they haven't hired a scheme. I hope they've hired a really good offensive football coach who's a natural at taking advantage of what he has at any given moment. That's what I hope.
John, you seem to have shifted, and I don't think in a bad way. I think it's because you're struggling to believe they'll make as big of a shift. Like when they hired, or when the Jeff Stoutland news broke, we did a show and you were like, well, they're changing, guys. I mean, it's clear now that they are changing the offense. Now I feel like I don't say this to like call you out, because I think we all go through a natural evolution of your first thoughts, and then you kind of sit on it, you think about it, you get more information, you talk through things. I'm sure you reach out to all of your sources and the people that you're connected with. Now I feel like you don't believe that they're actually going to switch it that much.
Well, yeah, but the reason I don't believe they're going to switch it that much is because I don't believe these guys are idiots, and I haven't met most of them. I don't believe Sean Mannion's an idiot. So I don't believe it's going to be as drastic as people think it is. But I know they're going to try. That's what I know. They're going to try, but they've tried in the past and then recalibrated. So that's where I am. It really hasn't changed. But they are hell bent on trying this time more than they were last time. By the way, just real quick, Jordan Mailata had a good season. I don't know where that comes.
Yeah, he did.
My God. I mean, he talks about, but that's Mailata. He's like, I'm not that good. He's just always, he's that way. He's fucking awesome. And he was awesome. He was the only one who was awesome last year, but I digress. Yeah, but from the standpoint of, I just don't, and I haven't met the guy, and we won't get to meet him until May, presumably. Sean Mannion. Everybody talks so highly of him. I do not believe he's coming in here and just saying, well, I have Jordan Mailata and Landon Dickerson, and I'm just going to have them reach block all Sunday afternoon. I find that fucking hard to believe. That's all it is.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I find it hard to believe too, but I also don't want to deny my eyeballs. They're making some big changes.
Well, again, it's easy to make changes on paper. And then when you get in the actual lab and you try things, smart people adjust.
And where I think you're right is, I mean, if anybody remembers, and maybe this is too far, or fans and people alike have choosing to remove this from their memory, but the offseason prior to Kellen Moore's calling of the first year after he was hired, there was a lot of talk about the Eagles running a pro-style offense, and which they started with, but ultimately never,
it's all over talk. Motion, motion. Oh, I remember.
Oh, yeah, it was so big.
First press conference, because it was such a big deal. I asked Kellen about his history with motion, and he talked that maybe it was the longest answer he gave all year. How he grew up with it, how important it was to him. And he saw what he had, and God bless him, he changed. Because they didn't do it that well. That, to me, is the definition of a good football. That's not an insult to Kellen Moore. That's a compliment to Kellen Moore.
I agree.
And I think the same thing is going to happen this time. I think. But that's because of what the Eagles have.
And how long do you think that might take?
I think won't take that long. I think it'll be scaled back by week 1 and scaled back more by week 4.
Week 1 scale
from what they doing because I already know I could, if I had the time, I could sit down and read and write my stories in advance, because I can tell you what the narrative's going to be in OTAs and early in training camp. How much motion, how much literally, I mean, somebody in the chat has to remember, if they read coverage of the field, they have to remember this.
They remember it.
Maybe they don't want to remember it. But so I believe you're going to see that the entire offseason. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you should be doing in the offseason. It's like the old, baseball spring training has started, and you're going to see these knuckleheads that care about spring training games, and maybe a pitcher's out there trying to expand his repertoire, and he's throwing a bunch of curveballs, and he doesn't have a good curveball, and he gives up 10 runs. Nobody gives a shit. You're trying to work on stuff.
You said game 1. That's like the pitching coach coming out in inning number 1. You got 1 down and 1 man on, and the pitching coach is coming down.
So if you're operating with the idea it's going to be Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay's offense, which is what everybody's operating.
No,
I'm saying it's scaled back from that by week 1.
Okay, that I agree with.
And then it's scaled back even more as you go into it. That's what I'm trying to say.
And do you think at any point in the year next year we full blown reach the Nick Sirianni offense is back in full swing?
Well, I don't even look. And people can say what they want. Nick Sirianni has a long history. That's not his fucking offense. He doesn't want to run it either.
Well, it's his offense in Philly, right? I mean, he has said that.
Well, but the point is, the 2020, even 2020, it's very similar from the entire time. Yes. But even 2021 is different from 2022, vice versa. There's been involvement, even though people refuse to acknowledge it. The best example, ironically, was last year with going under center, which everybody loved, and now they dislike it because Jeff didn't like it, but they don't know Jeff didn't like it, so they still like it. It's bizarre, but there's been involvement, and what is the difference between 2022 and 2024? Well, the average fan will say Shane Steichen's great, Kellen Moore's great, and the other guys are stupid. It's more of the players executed and the players performed and the players played at a high level. And if the players play at a high level in 2026, everybody's going to be happy. If they don't, everybody's going to be miserable, and they're going to blame it on Nick Sirianni and Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard and everybody else, and Chris Cooper.
All right, so quick wrap. How does the Chris Cooper led offensive line mesh with the potential offensive change? Good, not good. Doesn't really sound like so good based on your.
It's all based on how healthy Landon is, and
yeah, but even if he's healthy, is he a fit? Not really, right?
Oh no, he's not a fit for what people project in their heads. But I don't think that matters. I mean, Chris Cooper's played in the league for 9 years, whatever. He's not going to go ask Landon Dickerson to go reach block for 60 minutes.
Yeah, but John, you are expecting them to change a little bit, right?
Yeah, a little bit. They're going to play more wide zone. They're not going to play as much as some other teams do because they're not equipped to do it yet. But even, it's like use the Rams for an example. When Kyron Williams is fumbling the ball in big spots, it's usually inside. So, I mean, they run inside zone. They just run more outside and they're more built that way. But it's not like you can just solely run it. So, the Eagles are smart enough to take advantage of what they have. But, they're, Nick's in a tough political spot. Let's be honest. He everybody wants change. Everybody saw what happened last year. You can't run it back. So you got to play the game. You got to play the game. And by week 2, week 3, when you're actually winning, if you're winning football games, nobody's complaining. Not Jeffrey Lurie, not the fans.
That guy, Jeffrey Lurie, they showed him in the box, John, last year quite a few times.
Now, but he's not gonna turn down another Lombardi trophy.
No, he's not.
That's what I think. I think Nick, in a lot of ways, is people don't give him credit. I think he's smarter than people give him credit for. I think he knows play the game in the offseason and then go fucking win the game on Sunday, whatever it looks like. I think he's smart enough to know he's got to play the nonsense. And then when it starts, just go beat who's in front of you and everything will work out.
Maybe, John. We'll see. All right, real quick. We kind of mentioned the tight ends, but there's none under contract. So real quick, John, just for the sake of the segment, because this will be in a separate post on YouTube. What's the ideal tight end for this new version of the Eagles?
George Kittle, Tucker Kraft.
George Kittle. Is there anybody out there in the draft or anything? Maybe a Michael Mayer trade. Who knows? We'll find out. I don't want to spend too much time on tight ends. We got to see what happens there. John, quarterback. All right, that's the last one here in the offense.
Oh boy.
Has the quarterback? How are you expecting it to change around him? How well does he fit on the perceived change of the offense?
That's the $1 million question. I think we'd all be rich if we could figure that out. On paper, does not look like a fit. I do not believe that, again, Sean Mannion will come in and ask him to do a bunch of stuff he's not comfortable with. Sean Mannion was a quarterback. That is not something you want to do to any quarterback. He knows that. I'm very confident that he knows that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how this evolves. He's not going to be asked to be Matthew Stafford. He's not going to be asked to be Brock Purdy. Can he be Jordan Love? Maybe.
The biggest challenge will be for Hurts in this. just maybe getting the ball, like not being the playmaker. And on every play, I feel like he's been so accustomed to being that, although that's changed a little bit in recent
If
years.
you watch Green Bay play, it was a lot of deep throws, a lot of, it wasn't
They got a lot of receivers involved, dude. They had like 8 receivers catch a ball in a given game.
Well, yeah, but a lot of long developing plays. I think if you look at them all, I think Green Bay would be the most likely scenario. What I don't expect is the ball coming out on time. The point guard, I don't expect that. I just don't until I see it. I don't know why anybody could say, well, he can do that. Where's the evidence? And why would you want him to do that? That's the second part. Like but to me, the biggest thing about Jalen Hurts is got to get the running portion back into the equation.
Yeah.
I don't care who's responsible at this point. Everybody pointing fingers. You got 4 pointing back at you, the old adage.
Yeah, it's like the meme. It's a Spider-Man meme, John, where they're all pointing at one another.
It's like, I don't give a shit at this point, but it better be back. Or you're going to have some of the same difficulties. Yeah, I mean, I guess, and I've said this before, and that was my biggest criticism of KP was, why can't you get a layup? Why can't you get more layups for the quarterback? And I think that's what you want from Sean Mannion. But, then I was thinking about it with Ben Simmons. Sometimes you get him a layup and he doesn't want to take it.
That's a crazy comp.
I mean, it's.
Oh man, I can't believe you just hit me with Ben Simmons, but I see what you're saying.
It's harsh, but it's pretty easy to get a layup in the NFL if you really want a layup, and I'm talking about bullshit bubble screen, whatever.
How many throwing attempts a game do you think Jalen's going to have next year?
I think they want to be right in the 25 range.
Like where they normally have.
In a perfect world. I don't want to, but that's not, people think these are all insults. These are not. I don't want Matthew Stafford throwing it 45 times. I don't know where people
go. That's not good football. That's just bad. That normally means you're losing the game.
Exactly. I don't want the smartest quarterback in the game throwing it 45 times. Now, if you have to, and they can get you over the top, well, that's awesome. More often than not. But yeah, anybody who's playing at that level, you don't necessarily want. And obviously, look, Jalen's not a high volume thrower. I talk about it all the time. There's good and bad. You ended the show yesterday, I think, or somebody asked me, who's a better quarterback, Jalen Hurts or Sam Darnold? Well, Sam Darnold.
Pumper super jet.
Yeah, so it was Pumper. Obviously, Pumper's going with, he hates Hurts, and he knows I like Darnold, but I said Hurts because Hurts to me is still a better quarterback. However, I saw another Sam Darnold stat. First quarterback in NFL history, another one, to have a 1,500-yard receiver in 2 consecutive years with 2 different teams. He is a high-volume thrower. But is Jalen Hurts a better quarterback? I think he's a better quarterback, yes. I think Sam's very good, which means I think Jalen's very good. But I think you have to build around their strengths. And I think both teams have done that. And both teams have a Super Bowl because they've done that.
We will see. We will see what ends up happening. I read an article yesterday, John, in the Ringer about 9 storylines or something defining the 26 offseason. Eagles were in there on the precipice of a reset, I believe is the way they worded it. And they pointed out a stat to me, which I think is relevant to our conversation right now. Since Jalen Hurts became the starter of the Eagles, They rank dead last in throws between the numbers with 903 total, and it's over 100 fewer than the next worst team. So they do not use the middle of the field. I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on here in this new offense. We will figure out though what that looks like and how it works, John. So we'll go from there. Let's go to some super chats here on the show today. I want to thank everybody for being here. All right, good show today so far. We have Chris Franklin coming up. Here's vulnerable vitality. 1.5 million is an accomplishment worthy of recognition. From Jody to the old late morning show to the people here today. See you all at 3 million. Thank you, vitality. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. That's just audio downloads. That's not YouTube. YouTube's where our main base lives.
Nice.
Thanks, vitality. Here's Anthony Hunt. Should the Eagles trade AJ for Jefferson? Oh gosh.
No.
Why would the Vikings do that?
Yeah, could you imagine A.J. Brown with J.J. McCarthy? My God.
Oh, he would.
I mean, Justin had his problems, obviously, but he handled it a little bit better.
A.J. become a drunkard, and I wouldn't be able to blame him. And he's not a drinker. Here's James Carver. What up, Carver? Thanks for your supers. We got a string of multiple here from Carver. Per usual. Thanks, Carver. Like J-Mac with BLG, I don't see Nick just walking up and changing. He showed he's 100% political and wishy-washy. So after here, no one will know what he is. Yet they bank on him versus the best development coach and forget all else. That's a huge problem. I agree with that, Carter.
Yeah, I don't agree, James, because I mean, I don't think I think he's savvy, politically savvy. I think he's smart. Like, I don't care what you like. If you follow politics, like James Carville's a guy who, I don't agree with much, but man, he's savvy. Would
it be fair to say though about the wishy-washy point? Maybe you're right, but like if hypothetically Nick wasn't here anymore and he was on the open job market, what would the perception be or the expectation of like his offense? In other words, if you hire Kyle Shanahan, you're getting his offense. You hire McVay. You hired Mannion. We have an expectation. LaFleur. Everybody's got an expectation for like what they bring, what their expertise is, where they thrive. What would Nick's be? Would they think he's bringing in the power scheme? Would they think he's going back to the Rivers scheme? Will they think he'll just be the chameleon? I don't know. I think that's.
Well, he would be. That's how he sold himself to Jeffrey Lurie, as being the chameleon. And he had 3 different offenses in 3 different years in Indianapolis because of circumstance. Andrew Luck retired late in the summer, kind of screwed them, and they had to shift offenses to Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby was and they did a solid job. But obviously you want to improve on that. They went out and got Phillip Rivers, and it was completely different again. So you had 3 different offenses in 3 different years built around who they had. And that's how he sold the Eagles, that he's the guy. And to his credit, and I know a few people want to give him credit, you saw what he did in Indianapolis for the first 7 games of 2021. It didn't work, and he shipped it. And he built around a quarterback and had unbelievable success, the most success this organization has ever had. So the resume is pretty fucking good.
I don't dispute that.
But from the standpoint of that's how my presumption is how he would sell himself for the next job, as a guy. And again, that's, everybody in this league, I didn't make it up. It's a cliche in this league, and there's a million cliches, starting with number 1, which is control what you can control. When you're around the NFL, that's all you hear constantly. But really up there is, if you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. Everybody says it. Everybody knows it. Everybody understands it. And there's way too many people that do it every single year, because you don't know. And the Larry Karras story is the best story Nick has ever told, because he was a young coach at the time trying to be an offensive coordinator for the first time, and Larry Karras set up the trap for him. Said, all right, what kind of offense do you want to run? And just like we're talking here and all the fans talk, he's answering what he thinks Larry Karras wanted to hear, which is, I want to run motion. I want to be under center. And he stopped him right away and said, you don't even know who your players are. What are you talking about what you want to do?
It's fair. Here's Carver again. The basics of reach, blocking, and immediate desire to gain ground with the entire line sliding will almost certainly eliminate the RPO aspect, especially when the O-line patterns with a split and inside zone scheme to ensure there's no O-line downfield.
Well, look, the RPO has been less of a thing, really. Instead, it's funny because so many Eagles fans think of the NFL is always against the Eagles. They're trying to ban the tush push, that kind of stuff. The most impactful thing the NFL ever did to the Eagles is tighten up on illegal man downfield penalties when they were having tremendous success early with RPOs. And once they did that, again, in college, if you watch college football, they just let them go way downfield. They never call it, rarely call it. In the NFL, they're really stringent. You see illegal man downfield penalties all the time. So that kind of took them away from it. It's got nothing to do with anything other than that. That's why they don't use it as much. Because the NFL calls it so tight, you can't cheat. And all of a sudden, if you start losing 5 yards and you're back behind the sticks, we saw all those problems. How many illegal man downfield penalties have the Eagles had? Because remember, RPO means run pass option. And the Eagles run RPRs where Jalen Hurts has a run, a pass, and then a run option. And how many times have you seen hesitation? It's a timing play. Remember, from an offensive line's perspective, when you run an RPO and an RPR, to them, it's a run play. So they're trying to get off the line of scrimmage and block guys, whether it's combo blocks, pin and pull, whatever. They're not going to run pin and pull, but you get the point. They're trying to get off the line. So, Landon Dickerson might get a good block, and he's 3 yards down the field. And by the way, offense, what a stupid idiot Landon Dickerson is. No, he was doing his job. The other guys weren't doing their job because it's a timing play. And that's why the Eagles don't run RPOs. It has nothing to do with anything else than how stringent the NFL calls it. And part of the reason they call it that is because the Eagles had so much success with it early, a lot of the other teams started complaining, look, they're 2-3 yards down the field. That's not fair. And that's what happened.
Carver, good stuff. Here's another super from Carver. Should have gone with incorporating bootleg and more complex routes from front versus backside. Example, popcorn on the front and levels on the back. With the O-line scheme, stout or not, that fits the existing talent.
The concepts, the passing concepts, the route concepts. Where can I start?
Chris Franklin just joined, so you're going to get bailed out here, but you got to give it to James.
I'm so illusion. I'll come back to it. Sean McVay. Look up Sean McVay. Look up illusion of complexity. Look at how many plays Sean McVay runs in his offense. You will be stunned. You will be stunned. Illusion of complexity.
Right. Interesting stuff. Good stuff, Johnny Mac. Appreciate everybody being here today. Don't forget to hit that like button. We got the legendary Chris Franklin in the green room, and he's set to join us right now here on Birds 365. We bring him in. You can follow him at C Franklin News. Read all his work at NJ.com. Chris, great to see you on this Thursday morning. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right, and you just gave me an idea for either a podcast or a group name with Illusion of Complexity.
Yes.
That's a hell of a name.
That is self-described by Sean McVay. Remember that backup offensive line? He's the one who, oh boy, I can't remember his name. The Eagles signed him. He was a backup. He was with the Rams, and it was during the Zoom era. I got to look him up. He was only here for a short period of time, but he let the cat out of the bag. He said Sean calls it the illusion of complexity, but it's all over the place now. He runs about 8 to 10 different passing concepts. That's it. Everything's different formationally. He mixes it up. That's it. Everybody thinks illusion.
When you break it down, it's really not the most complex offense. It's a lot of verbiage sometimes, but it's all it's window dressing. It's a lot of use a motion. Okay, it's almost like a Houdini thing in an aspect of I'm going to make you look one way, and next thing you know, I'm running out the back door with like some counter or something else that builds upon what you've seen over time. So, yeah, that's why everybody says it's a very quarterback friendly system, because it's not the old West Coast offensive things where you had volumes of stuff. It's, hey, we're going to try to out formation you, we're going to try to out motion you, and defense, you try to figure out what we try to do. And that's pretty much what the standing offense is.
Yeah, and he went to a lot of 13 personnel this year because of the issues at wide receiver, and he was running the same plays, but it was a different look with 3 tight ends on the field, and people are like, what? Wow. But all the concepts are basically the same. It's astonishing me. But anyway, I digress. Chris is not an illusion. He is here. We haven't talked to you since the Super Bowl. I did want to talk your thoughts on the game from the perspective of what Seattle does and how far are the Eagles, as they are currently stationed, away from the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, once I woke up a few times after that boring game, a lot of times, when you look at what the Seattle Seahawks did, they're not, the Eagles and Seahawks are not that far apart in terms of defensively. I think the Eagles, they basically crapped the bed at times. They weren't consistent at times in big moments late because they were on the field for so long. So I think that's why their effectiveness waned a little bit towards the end of the year. Offensively, I think when you look at what they did, that's what the Eagles could do to a T with the right setup, the right play calling. You wouldn't be surprised if you saw the Eagles and Seahawks be around the same level next year. Granted, if Kenneth Walker signs and all that stuff, but there's not that much far apart. It's just because there's inconsistency. Stop the dumb pre-snap penalties and get in the flow with this play calling. You hope Sean Mannion can do that.
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead, John.
With Sean Mannion, since we have to get into him, you've heard the cliche. If you're hiring a scheme, you're doing it wrong. Now, my assumption is, and this is just my speculation, it's going to be similar to what Kellen Moore did when he came here, and they were trying to change. And you and I were at practice every day, and we talked about, hey, they're running more motion, they're doing this is new, and then they scale back. Do you expect something similar from Sean Mannion? Because it seems like they're really doubling down when you talk about moving on from stout. They're really doubling down to go to more of the Shanahan style, McVay style offense. But I don't think they necessarily have the fits to play that right now. They built this roster up with the idea of playing a different style of football. I don't think you just say, all right, throw that in the trash. Well, how do you straddle that line?
Well, I think you can. There's some things you can do, and the one thing you've seen over time. I mean, look at when the West Coast offense was big. Everybody thought the Bill Wall stuff, and then you see the Holmgren variants, and then you see the Andy Reid to the Doug Peterson, because he technically came from that tree. Well, when you look at it, I think they're not too far off. It's little things like I don't like the fact that Stoutland's gone, but I get it if you're going to run the system because you need somebody well versed because the footwork's different, the idea is different, the directional is different. Same with the tight end. Or Jason Michael, in case I know it's not official, but pretty much it looks like it. With Jason Michael, the tight end has to work with the tackle and do that. So you do that. I look and see there's not that you can still marry some of the concepts that worked well for you. Football, and I think sometimes football gets overcomplicated at times, whereas you still need the guys to get SQ, but you can look different ways and dress things differently. And I don't think you necessarily have to change the whole entire thing, which I know after last year you kind of want to, but it's the same thing that we saw the year before. So, but at the same time, I think when you look at Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, I think there's a directive down there to say, hey, you know what? We're going to try this. The league is going this. You see more points are being thrown up with this. We're going to let them do this. We're going to stick with this through because I think that's the best evaluation for what they're going to do in the future. And if things don't change, if they're still struggling offensively, I wouldn't be surprised after next year you see some wholesale changes, and not just with the coach staff, but with the personnel as well too.
And the departure of Jeff Stoutland in that equation to you means what?
It's rough and it sucks that I had to come with this. It had to come down to it. I mean, it just wasn't his style. And I know that the Eagles do run some outside. They run outside zone. They've done it with success too. I think it's just a matter of when you're marrying that whole entire system and you're bringing in the pass that comes off the run. And Stout's a bright guy. Stout's been around the league. He's seen everything and everything. And I have no qualms that he probably would have picked it up. But it's probably those things where he thought like, hey, you know what? This is the best way to go and attack a defensive line to help this offense. And things are just changing. And maybe he was tired too. He was like, you know what? I don't want to go through this all as well too. He's up there in age. Maybe he's like, you know what? I'll help out. Maybe I'll try to go do a couple of years and he leaves. But this just wasn't the type of system that he wanted to run or have to learn whole new or bring other assistants in to try to help out. So I think that's what was a lot that played a lot to a factor of his decision not to return too.
And by the way, from the standpoint of who they have, and your point, look, you know, all indications are Lane is going to be back, and you have a 380-pound left tackle, you have a monster at left guard. Atlanta Dickerson is back. Is that really the type of talent you want reach blocking all afternoon and trying to get outside zone so much, or do you take advantage of their strengths and what they've done under Jeff Stoutland, which is, double team blocks, pin and pull, power, inside zone, and occasional outside zone splashed in? I mean, to me, the definition of good coaching is taking advantage of what you have. I'm not asking Jordan Mailata to reach block all Sunday afternoon. I've been saying it on the show for a couple of days now. Landon Dickerson even more so. Like, as banged up as he is, Chris?
Yeah, I still think when you look at the way that with that zone that blocking scheme entails, they can do it. I think, and when you look at the most success most of the year was coming. Actually, I think it was like the left end. They were averaging that there was their highest average when you're running around that outside end. And surprisingly, was the between the like the A gap B gap area. That was, I was looking out when I look at the numbers like, wait, what? As much as they had to, we all know they ran to the right up the middle all the time after a first down. It was like clockwork. We know it's like, all right, cool. Well, first down 10, we know it's coming, but still, when you look at the overall average, they still ran successfully outside. And it's going to take a lot of work in terms of trying to get these guys out of their old habits and doing that. I still think it's doable. I truly do. And it's not like in the whole entire concept, it's not completely new because they've run some elements of it, but to the point where they're going to have to rep it over and over again and running that, I think this team can still run the zone run game very effectively as well too. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you take a lineman or two within the first 5 rounds, but just because the questions you have about Lane, like how much longer he's going to play, the questions about Dickerson, because when that starts popping up in a guy, I know it could be frustration, but when that starts popping up in a guy, you have to wonder, you got to have a backup plan in place just in case he decides he wants to move on. So get these guys in early, get them to work with them, and so that way you have the young guys and the vets all learning this at the same time, trying to hammer this down in their heads and then go from there. But I still think they can be very successful with that.
Chris, what do you think this year looks like for Jalen Hurts and his role in this potential new offense that they're running?
I think we'll see an uptick in the passing yards. I really do, because I think that I still have confidence they can run this, especially beforehand with the confidence of running the game. I think it's going to bring a lot more teams downhill. And I think especially when I know they're talking about, he didn't throw over the middle. I think that it's going to clear the middle and give them a little bit more space that he's going to feel more comfortable or and try to attack that middle of the field. And I wouldn't be surprised if you look at you'll see his numbers go up because AJ's going to run what he does best, running across the middle into the field. You look at whoever's a tight end, whether it's Dallas Goedert, David Njoku, maybe he's a rental option. You look at other guys, whoever's running that tight end position, you run him, they're going to have success in the middle. Devontae Smith, we've seen the success he had in the slot. When you start running those bootlegs, when you start running that thing, that when those linebackers come up, Hurts can do that, and you run that naked boot or what have you, he can lay it up in there and have success that way too. And it's not to say that we won't see the elimination of the deep pass. I mean, I think they relied on it too much. It was hit or go. What we do, I think you'll see a little bit more creative in terms of route concepts. And I think this will be something where I think Jalen Hurts will see his completion percentage increase. I think you'll see his yardage increase. And he's always been risk averse when it comes to throwing the interception. So I don't see it foretell. Well, training camp, whoever keeps stats, whatever, or training camp, yeah, you may see a few because he's learned the system, but I think you see something like
that. Stats, yeah. Saquon's interesting to me too because we saw it in the Super Bowl. We saw how everybody was remarking just how patient Walker was as a runner, letting blocks develop before hitting it. I always think about, when I think about patience, number one on my list is Le'Veon Bell. I don't think at his height there was ever a more patient runner than Le'Veon Bell. That's what you need when you're playing a lot of wides and a lot of you got to wait. You got to wait. You got to wait for the blocks to set up and the guys to kick out. That on paper does not seem to be the strength of Saquon Barkley or Tank Bigsby, who are both guys who, in Tank's case, he hits the hole like a million miles an hour. Saquon's case, we all complain when he doesn't. It's like, why are you stepping around? Why are you? So I think it's both of their strengths is hitting the hole and not patience. It's so similar to what we're talking about with the offensive line. Are you kind of hoping Sean Mannion is more malleable than just, I'm going to run this? Or are you hoping, no, these guys can do it if they're forced to do it? Which side of that fence are you on?
I think they'll still keep a few plays that he likes in terms of like way for like hitting the hole quickly, what have you. But it's going to be it's a lot going to be hammered on that. Hey, you're going to have to be patient. You're going to have to because you need time to develop. He's going to have to take about like 3-4 steps towards that outside and then plant and go and hit the hole quickly, which he's capable of doing. It's a matter of just hammering home. This is where I think you need Jamal Singleton. I think he'll be key in that, saying like, "Hey, listen, man, I'm being told this. We got to do this in order to succeed. Hey, just slow it down a little bit." And it takes time. And and one thing you see about backs as well too, most of them is when they get older, they start to have that vision. So you're hoping after yet another season that Saquon's able to hold his water a little bit. Just let the go 1, 2, 3. I see the vision. You know he's got good vision. We've seen him be able to have the vision to cut back when it comes to cutbacks, what have you. You can do that, and that's another thing too. He'll have the ability with the cutback. It's going to be there if he's patient. If he doesn't see what's there initially, you can't do it all the time. But I think he's going to be able to do it. It's a balancing act, and it's a feel thing. And this is the OTAs are going to be important to say, hey, listen, this is what happened there. At the always parts of OTAs, training camp, and listen. And I think as well too. I know I've said this beforehand because we've gone through so many offensive coordinators here. It's going to take 4 or 5 games probably before this offense is actually saying, okay, you know what? Now it's time to really judge it because it's something whole different. It's probably some new verbiage coming in again. So, yeah, I think it's possible to do it. I think he's capable of doing it. Like everything else, it's going to come up to the coaching from Mannion all the way down to Jamal Singleton to instill that into his guys. And, hey, the Tank Bigsby thing, yeah, that's the one. I wonder if they take a running back too because it's a whole different style. And I know he's really good at ISO. I'd float around thinking about, hey, using him as a quasi. I want to see how he blocks a little bit more. Use him as a quad. They use because in the system too, you do need 2 running backs. They use that 21 personnel a lot too, effectively too. Maybe you tease around, see what he looks like in a fullback role. Doesn't work, okay. Well, you try something else, or he looks something else. So I still like the talent he has. It's just a matter of trying to refine and see what you can do to maximize. If not, maybe get a pick for him. I don't know.
We'll see what ends up happening there. Who's the right fit at tight end here? Do you think they should bring back Goddard with these changes? You think they should look to draft somebody maybe high in the draft? What are you thinking about that tight end spot, Chris? I think that's a big one here.
I think especially Goddard's perfect when it comes in terms of the receiving aspect of it, just because you look at it and you look at the matchups, because when you do have those two tight end sets, they're going to need another tight end for sure. And I think they would be surprised, they say the second or third round they take one, because I think especially when this thing is really working, you have two effective tight ends. Maybe you use that 12 or the 22 personnel as well too. And I know that's more of a Shanahan offshoot, not LaFleur, because he likes to use a lot of the three wide receivers. But I think in order for this offense, I think you can really get a lot going if you get somebody who, for this season at least, you bring back Goddard for maybe like a 1-year deal. You get a young tight end who you do that, or if Goddard signs elsewhere for big money, bring in Njoku, bring in that young tight end, because you need that outside edge to be able to block. And I like the fact that if you do that, and once you Njoku say 1-on-1 thing, he's going. You got your new guy. Maybe you go back to the 3 wide receiver thing and you work it out there, because. Yeah, I'm sorry. Darius Cooper is good, but I don't like he could be something. Is he that permanent third wide receiver right now? I'm saying no. I'm looking at something. I want something like a little bit more prolific in the slot. He's good at blocking, but I want somebody a little bit more prolific in there. I think he could be the fourth.
I want a manufactured touch guy. Find me a manufactured touch guy. I think this offense has needed that for years. They can't find it. They can't find it. And in today's NFL world, because of what's going on in college, Chris, the easiest position to find is receivers. You should be able to get a receiver in the second or third round who can contribute. You should. I mean, look at the last 2 drafts. Forget about the first round. Look at the second, third round receivers. Bunch of them just contribute right away. The Eagles got to be able to come up with something. And I get in their previous incarnation of their offense, there wasn't a lot of traffic, so it didn't matter. I don't even think Jahan Dotson is a bad player. It's just I want a different style of player. And in the old style of offense, they weren't getting a lot of traffic. So who could, it was like, who cares? But if you really, really want to go this way, look at how many receivers Jordan Love would get involved. I mean, they don't have a great, everybody's like, they don't have a number one. Yeah, but they got about 6 threes and they're all contributing. To the one guy, I think it was Bo Melton. They moved him to defense, and then they had a bunch of injuries, and they moved him back, and he was making plays. Why can't the Eagles find that? The Romeo Dobbs of the world. That's who I'm talking about.
I know it's going to come rich because given what we saw in the last game, Dobbs, to me, he drops too many passes. He does, and I know, but in my mind, I'm still mad at him. Like, it's like, you have all this talent, dude. Come on, dude. Do
probably the kazoo helmet. He's one of the
the wind resistance. Okay, can't see it. What have you? But yeah, I mean, I still wouldn't be lost. It would be lost. I mean, they really look at tight end because you got Tucker Kraft. You look at the way he did in Green Bay. You have that.
Yeah. Also, draft Tucker Kraft. Yes, draft Tucker Kraft.
That might help. But yeah, like you can have all that stuff, but also when you look at the gravity of who you have on his roster too, that the third wide receiver, the fourth wide receiver, especially if they do bring back Goddard, you know where all the touches are going to go. It's going to go to AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. They're not going to stray away from that at all because they've seen it work in the past in terms of when you have the right system.
I hear a lot of stagnation, Chris Franklin. Stagnant.
It's not stagnant. No, it's not stagnant at all. No, you just know these guys are actually good when they're put in the right places. That's the thing. It's like, it's Keith Shucks. Like, wow, talent really comes out when you put them in a spot that actually does that. Like, imagine if you had Sean McVay running this offense with this roster of receivers. Yeah, it looked a lot better than what we saw last year.
By the way, has Sean McVay ever beaten the Eagles?
Yeah, no, because I think there's some things in terms of
I find it so ironic. And I think Sean McVay is a good coach. People say I don't think he's a great game manager, but obviously he's a great
Nope.
offensive coach. But I do find it ironic that the Eagles constantly beat all these guys and everybody wants their systems and offenses. I do find that ironic.
And that's the thing with McVay. Like when you look at it, like when it comes to the decision, he's too busy looking like, well, I can run this one second and third down, fourth down, and fifth down, fourth down, and I can go this one first down and second down, and all that. He's so ingrained, and the next thing he knows, like, oh, the play clock's bad. Or then he goes, you know what? I don't care about special teams. Let me just hire this guy, whatever that.
Oh, special teams. Oh,
boom, boom. So
yeah,
that's what McVay's. But yeah, it's that's why I think as much as I think even say whenever Nick's gone. Whenever it happens, I think the CEO style coach is going to be back. They're going to try and get that. Even though I know people say you need somebody to call plays. Well, look at Kyle Shanahan. He calls plays and everything else. He has trouble with game management.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of these guys. So
look at LaFleur. He doesn't even look at the field when the defense is out there.
Exactly. So yeah, CEO guys work. That's why I think you see like Harbaugh and some of these other guys. Some teams are turning to that a little bit. Why is it skipping my brain in Buffalo? Joe Brady, CEO types. That's why I think teams are going towards that a little bit more.
We'll see what they end up doing. Chris, couple free agents now this offseason. Who do you think's top priority? Are you in the pay Jalen Phillips camp, or if he gets $25 million, are you letting him walk? A couple free agents, him, Nakobe, Reed Blankenship, and Dallas Goedert obviously are the big four. What do you see in free agency for this team? Any bold predictions one way or the other about somebody they would keep or let walk?
I think their priority needs to be Jalen Phillips, because even though it may be a good edge rushing class and maybe all that, when you look at what's available, the fact that when you have a guy like Max Crosby lingering out there and 20 teams around are calling and say, hey, is this guy available? You better, either you tag him, which I know the Eagles don't do. They rarely do that. So you can't tag him, but you better find a way to sign him, because if not, you're back in the same boat you were in last year. So to me, he's the priority. The Reed Blankenship thing, that's tough. I don't personally, I think, and Nakobe too, I think they get offers elsewhere. And I think especially with this, especially the safety class is deep again, and you got Mkuba coming back too. I see that as, I think they go young in that direction too. I wouldn't be surprised in the Reed thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they go elsewhere. Nakobe, I would love for him to come back, because I think he's a great linchpin and he's versatile. And we saw at times what you could do with all three of those guys on the field. And I think JaKib Campbell, even though he like disappeared as the season went away, I think there is a path where you can have all three of those guys in there. Makes it look like that 3-3-5 I talked about before. That's something I would like to do. Dallas Goedert is a wild card, because I look at him and you see what he's doing. Like, everybody sees that production he had last year, even if it's the little, the little pop pass touchdowns and the things that really were runs, what have you, the shovel pass. But you still see somebody there. The thing with him is like you're always waiting. Like every time he gets tackled, he stays down on the ground long. You got that thing you feel like, is he down? How many games is going to miss? And they pop back up. You're like, all right, well, he's good. That's the constant thing you want to run with him. So if somebody offers Goddard 2 or more years, I think he's gone, because I think the team probably will only want to do one.
Yeah. So, and I think he will, because he's coming off a 13 touchdown season. So I think he's going to get 2 years. And, remember, the Eagles made him take a $4 million financial haircut. So he's not going to be looking to give any team friendly deals. So I don't see a way Dallas is going to be back, unfortunately. Nakobe as well. I bring you back. I think it was Brookie. I think it was your guy, Brookie, who asked the question. He asked the question, hey, Vic, do you envision 3 linebackers being on the field? And Vic looked at him and laughed, and he said, at linebacker? No. So if JaKib Campbell can play edge, but there's no evidence JaKib Campbell can play edge. So I think it's going to be really difficult for Nakobe to be back as well. Personnel as a whole, though, I want to ask you a more holistic question, I guess, of Howie's job. It's like, Vic almost retired both years. Obviously, short term. We're talking about a shift in scheme and we all know the Eagles' history. Either they're going to succeed and Sean McVay is going to be a head coach, or they're going to fail and Nick Sirianni is going to get blown out. And if Nick Sirianni gets blown out, everybody gets blown out for the most part. Very few would return. So you can't really say this guy's a fit for Vic or this guy's a fit for what the Eagles want to do on offense now with Sean Mannion. If you're Howie Roseman, how do you go about your job? Is it just let me take the best players and those guys got to figure it out? How does that? How do you weigh that if you're Howie Roseman?
To me, it's a two-pronged approach. I think up top when it comes to him, I think they have in mind, like as we see right now with this the offensive changes, this is the way we're going to want to play organizationally. So I'm going to look more towards guys that fit that system no matter what. Offensively, defensively, I think they're going to stick in this same style thing. Maybe you start asking Clint Hurt a few more questions, like, "Hey, I know they do that for his position group, but like overall, like, what do you think about when you look at this defense, what have you?" And then overall, you need to draft intelligent players. And I know it's tough because sometimes it's that balance risk of does this guy have a high football IQ to at least know, like, hey, if we shift systems, can he know what to do that versus a guy who has a lot of raw talent, but maybe has like a 1.6 because he took golf and it was all awful or something like that. And like, he has a hard time picking up different systems and stuff. So you look at it, I think that's one thing that bouncing at that general manager's way, and it's tough to do that. I still think you go for there's an organizational philosophy overall. This is what way we're going to play on offense no matter what. This is the way we're going to defense no matter what. We're going to find the best coach that may have that. He may have his own tweaks here, but this is what they think on this side, and it's what we think defensively as well too. And they just move on from that way, and just it really is. I think really overall, a lot of that relies on getting a lot of smart players who can learn quickly, that can be able to adapt if they have to make wholesale changes for 2027.
Chris, last question from me. I know you're a reporter and not necessarily a fan of the team in terms of being invested in the results, but you have covered a pretty successful football team for the last 5 years. Do you feel like the window for great success is closing? Do you feel like they're still right in the mix as a top contender? Do you feel like we're teetering maybe could blow this thing up? I mean, I don't even know if Nick's going to be here after next year, depending on what happens. Where are you on what you think the team is going to accomplish or how good they're going to be from a macro?
I'm going to use it as I'm hoping the weather turns out like in March or April, where it's a nice spring day. The window last year, it was all way open. You clean, doing your spring clean, the window's way open. I think it came down a half a peg. I think it a little bit because I still think you have enough core pieces where you can still have success. I think when you look around the landscape of the NFC, I know things change a year. This team is still competitive, in my opinion. Can be competitive with that, with the competent coaching. So I still think you still have enough time there to be able to compete for that. I think at least another 2 years, because I know general managers looking at 3 year increments. I think you got at least 2 more years in order to do that. Even if you pull a Dungy Gruden type thing where, say, if Nick's gone, he brings somebody else in, and you still have the same personnel for the most part, I think you still have success. So it's still open. It's not as wide open as it used to be, especially this year. This year did a lot of damage. It really did, like to the psyche. The players themselves, they're probably a little like I wouldn't be surprised if a few of them look like Seattle. Like, really? Like, we're a better constructed roster than this team. We got beat by we could have been where Seattle's going right now. It should have been where they're standing. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have that mindset going, listen. And also for them, we want to come back and get another ring. We got to do it now sooner.
I would look at it as a missed opportunity because, boy, New England did not look like a Super Bowl team to me, Chris. I mean, that is one of the worst Super Bowl teams I've ever seen. Just from they didn't look like a Super Bowl team. I don't know any other way to describe it. So, I mean, to get through the NFC, which was tougher, I think the real Super Bowl was obviously the NFC Championship game, but and the Rams were a very good team, and the NFC was certainly the tougher side of the docket. But boy, this was a missed opportunity.
and it's winnable games because you saw what you saw. I know the Eagles have had the Rand number, and it's going to come up. It's eventually going to end. But I still think, the Rams were driving late. To me, the Eagles still had a better shot if they had somebody that wasn't spamming hitches and go routes. Maybe throw a dig a couple while.
Kevin got a job. He's in Miami.
He could be a good passing game coordinator. I think it's one of those things like it's a flow, it's an art where you're calling these plays and you can't like one to another. It's a flow and an art to it. Just think he didn't get
well, that's true. That part's true. And maybe he did get over promoted. I say all the time, but he's not a dumb guy. He knows a lot about offensive football. And I wish him well in Miami. And he went to high school down there, so he's familiar with it. And he's a great golfer. His daughter's a great golfer, so maybe it's a good fit. Maybe it all works out in the end for everybody.
Yeah, new situation. They can get away from that. They don't have to think about the egging the house or anything like that. For it, it's brand new. They can, and I wasn't even trying to be like funny. That it's like it's seriously get away from that and reset and go from there.
Yep, no doubt. Chris, we appreciate you joining today. Make sure you guys follow Chris at C Franklin News. Read all his work at NJ.com. Chris, we will see if they keep that window open this year or that thing slams shut. Don't get your fingers stuck in there. Chris, thank you, brother. We appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you.
Thanks, everybody. I'll have to go now. See you later.
All right. See ya. Chris Franklin joining us right here on Birds 365. Great show today. Appreciate Chris joining in. Some good takeaways there from Chris Franklin, John, as we get closer now to free agency and the draft and all these different things. I thought we had a good talk about personnel today, and then we're going to start to apply that. All right, well, if there's changes coming, what do you need in free agency? What do you need in the draft? And we'll take a look at some of those things, John. But off-season's moving right along, my friend, and a lot of questions this summer for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, way more uncertainty. I mean, that was one of the things that really, and to a certain degree, you do have still a bit of a glut on offense unless you're going to make some serious moves and guys retire, which I don't think is going to happen in the case of Lane and Landon. Trading AJ number one priority if that happens. But if everybody comes back, there's not a lot of room to change things from the personnel standpoint. So then it becomes, how do they play? How do they play in a lot of new situations? I won't say completely new because I think, as I said, I think Sean Mannion will be smart enough to utilize them. But, there are, other than tight end, still projecting Dallas Goedert to leave, and wide receiver 3, maybe if you draft a right guard, maybe not a lot of room to move off people at this stage.
Doesn't seem like it there is, and I think you're right about that. We're going to see, what they end up doing, obviously, the tight end you mentioned, and a couple of other things, John. But how do you feel about the last question I asked, Chris? You've covered a pretty damn successful football team, John. You feel like that window might be closing?
It could be, and I think it would be a lot of it self-fulfilling prophecy. I think they, I've said it a couple times. They won 11 games. And granted, it was ugly, a lot of way to 11 games. But in a season where there was no great team, Seattle was very good, but there was no great team. They've been acting like a 5-win team. And they won 11 football games in the NFL, which isn't easy. And they act like they won 5. Now, some people might think that's positive, saying that's not acceptable. They're hell-bent on that not being successful. And I get that spin. But I also think, to move off this group so quickly and say you failed, I don't know. That's harsh to me. That's harsh. It's 11-win football team.
I know.
So if they go backwards, obviously winning cures all ills. If they win, everything takes care of itself. It's no longer a discussion point. If they go backwards, boy, then I think it's exactly what I said. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you overreacted. because there's still a lot of good players here. And half of the battle is those guys responding from saying, you know what, I played poorly last year. I got to ramp it up. And sometimes that's just a natural cycle. Guys have down years, then they have up years.
We'll see what ends up happening with the Johnny Mac. A couple minutes left on the show today. Kevin Patullo's in Miami, for those who didn't see that. So he's gone. We don't have to worry about seeing Patullo next year around the Eagles organization. John, will you miss Kevin Patullo?
Oh, yeah, personally, yeah. Great dude. Top 10 dude.
Wow, it's a big ranking.
Yeah. No, love the guy. I'm a bond, that's why I get annoyed by people who say stupid shit. But I he did not have a good season. I don't think it was all his fault, but he did not have, and maybe he was over promoted. Maybe he doesn't have the feel to be a play caller. That's certainly possible. But for the people that think he doesn't know football, man, he's forgotten more football than all those people who criticizing will ever know. And I think it's going to be interesting when Miami does announce the staff, because I think he's going to be more than a passing game coordinator for Jeff Hafley. I think he's going to be what he was here. And like he was Nick's right-hand man when it came to all the stuff that nobody cares about, administrative, logistics, on everything. Like he had a big role in this organization for 4 years before he became the offensive coordinator. And again, this is the longest sustained stretch of success for the Philadelphia Eagles in certainly the Super Bowl era. And he was a big part of it. And everybody in that building, like I always bring up Press Taylor, who got the normal. That's normally what happens. You even get it a little bit with Stout being headstrong out the door. That's usually what happens when you leave the door. All of a sudden the narrative changes. With Kevin, everybody loves the dude. Like everybody. Have you heard anybody criticize him from a personal level? Because I haven't.
I haven't, but I mean, I don't know how much that means. We need good football coaches. As nice as it is to have good people.
Oh, he's a good football coach. Again, you can't blame people for maybe he hit a height as passing game coordinator. You can go back to the Super Bowl week and Kenny Pickett and Jalen Hurts saying things and how important he was to the offense. Maybe he got over promoted. That's possible. Maybe he hit the ceiling of where he should be. That's possible. Although I think he'll rehabilitate himself in Miami. But yeah, for the he's a good football coach.
All right, we'll see what happens. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts here on a Thursday edition of Birds 365, my friend.
Final thoughts today. Well, I just gave them about Kevin, but it is going to be interesting from the standpoint, and we're going to have to delve deeper into Jalen Hurts, and that's going to be the story, like building the offense around Jalen Hurts and what that looks like. And that's been the story. It's been the story, and it's always going to be the story as long as he is the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. And, I think he's got certain strengths that maybe are, and I always use the term unique. And it seems to me that there's at least one person in that building who is intent on making sure he can do things that are traditional. And I'm not sure that's the way to go.
We'll see what ends up happening, Johnny Mac. Interesting time for the Eagles, and we'll see what the approach is. John, great show today, my friend. We will talk to you tomorrow on a Football Friday. All right, brother?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Johnny Mac. There's Johnny Mac. John McMullen joining me right here on Birds 365. Good show today. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Don't forget to hit that like button for me. All right. Good to see everybody. What's the talk over here? Sorry, Pump. I missed your super. Have y'all tried the Stick to the Model site? You can simulate being an NFL GM. Accurate contract restructuring, trading, and drafting in one tool. No, I haven't. Let me look that up real quick. Stick to the Model? Stick to the Model. Interesting. I see it, Pump. Be in NFL GM mode. Sounds like we're playing Madden. Philadelphia Eagles, 21 million. Pumper probably came in here. Oh, I like this, actually. This is cool, Pump. Yes, you can see why moving on from A.J. Brown or Saquon Barkley is not happening. Interesting, Pump. Actually, a pretty good resource. Pretty good resource here from Brian Pumper. Thank you, Pump. Share my screen. Keish, you want me to share my screen? No, I don't want to pull that up. Let me pull this up. Keish, I got so much shit on my damn screen, you wouldn't even know what hit you. Multiple computer screens here. Is it working? All right, here it is. So I came in. I'll start from the beginning. So start be a GM mode, and then you can pick your team. Shows you the cap spaces and everything. Eagles. Oh, come on. I just clicked on 0 out of 1 Anon uses left. All right, that's what happened. All right, I'm not going to freaking make the account now, but I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I'll do it later. Sign up with Gmail. Down bad. What the fuck? I'll do it. I'll make an account. How's everybody doing? I feel pretty good. Actually, I don't feel good about the Eagles. I feel good personally. Although my back hurts. No insufficient funds here, Kyle. That might be a you problem. Typical Pump. Classic Pump. Just like my third team, the Steelers, who have sucked since I was an undergrad. Carver, man, you got too many teams. Is Zander time going to be long enough to take a dump? No. I have a very important call today. I have to go. I have a very important call today. All right. Let's call it back end, bookkeeping, taxes, accounting, all this bullshit. All right. My longtime accountant is sick, so pray for him. Longtime accountant is sick, so I gotta look for something else. Hopefully, it's a call with your doctor about your spine. My doctor. What do you think? I have like a personal doctor I have on speed dial, Keys? No, that's not the case. If something hits the fan, you know what I'm doing? I'm probably going to urgent care. I don't have a doctor on speed dial. All right. No way. Not currently. I stay bad. Preston, I do try and stay busy. Zander called Carr. I did not call him a front runner. But I guess you can make that argument. How did Pre-Cannon go? Pre-Cannon was awesome. It was epic, brother. I actually enjoyed it very much, Fleming. I know you're going to go the diddler route because that's what you do, Fleming. But no, it was great. I really enjoyed it. Primary care physician is what they are called. Yeah, Key Swell. I'll deal with that another day. All right. I'll deal with that another day. Finding a new accountant sucks as an employee. Can't be easy as it's absolutely brutal. But I'm pretty organized with my books, so that's not my problem. But Z, you were the one yesterday saying you like your ass hanging out. LOL. What are you talking about, 18? Sometimes you guys just make up shit. I don't even know what this means. What the fuck did I say? I say too much on these shows. I really do. I say too much on these shows. On Sill's show? What did I say? They troll. HKP, they're always trolling me. Just like sticking to the model just did. You really did say that. What did I say? I don't fucking know, man. You do. It was hilarious. All right, well, 18, you're going to have to remind me. I put my ass out there. Flexing. Really? You're going to listen to these trolls? You're going to listen to A-Team and Reyes flex? Really? If I said anything of the sorts, then it was for a good cause. He was talking about taking risk. Oh, yeah, I do take risk. My entire life is a risk. I don't live my life not risking shit. You know, I'd go pick up a job at the local market if I wanted to do that, if I wanted to live risk-free. My whole life is a risk. Every day I'm on the edge. All right? Rasmussen, thank you, brother. Here's Hero. You did say that. I watched a 50-minute video on YouTube earlier this morning. Oh, fuck off, Hero name, Oblivion, whatever the hell your name is. We getting Crosby or not? David Batista. Batista bomb. You guys know the old wrestler, Batista? Boom! Whenever I'm hanging out with my nephew, I'll always say, Batista bomb! Boom! And I'll slam him on the bed. Fucking, let me guess. Dirty. I'm dirty. It's like I'm talking to a bunch of, I won't say it. All right, I won't say it. Flying mine, you can say it for me. Batista, he was a savage for sure. When your ass is out, there's always a risk. That's true, Fleming. That's true, Fleming. I'd have to go back, but he said something rather about having my ass hanging out. I don't know what you're talking about, 18. We not re-signing Phillips? I'm not sure either. Here's Philip. Zander, I know extending Carter after an underwhelming season may not be smart, but couldn't it save us 10 to 15 mil if he goes out and kills it next season? Yeah, it could for sure, Philip. I brought that up earlier on one of the shows. I don't know if it was the morning show or the afternoon show. We'll find out. All right. Cena better than all them chumps. Classic. I wouldn't know. All right. I gotta run. Let me get ready for this call. Appreciate all you guys being here. Good show today. Per usual, have a football Friday wrap up tomorrow. Trying to do some fun shit tomorrow on the show. All right. Hit the like. Oh, shoot. I broke my cousin's arm doing the Batista bomb. My name really is David Batista, by the way. Damn, what happened? You broke your cousin's arm? I better be careful with the nephew, man. Nothing like the Batista bomb. All right. Love all you guys. Batista, be safe, all right? Hit the like button. See you next time, everybody.
EAGLES. Eagles.